TheInfamousMag.com.
Peace, y'all. What's good? Y'all know who it is. It's your boy, Big Nex, and I got a special treat for y'all today. Today I got, the legendary Cavario Hunter from formerly of Don Diva magazine, currently of Hip Hop Weekly here on the line. Cavario, what's good with you, brother?
What's happening, baby boy? What's good? Good to be here, hollering at the people.
Right on, right on. Well, shoot, man, we're going to jump right into it, man, let people know about what you're doing. But let's go ahead and catch them up to speed about who you are. Now, you started off blazing your legacy working with Don Diva magazine, man. Tell us a little bit about that, bro.
Yeah, in '99, my ex, Tiffany, she and I stumbled upon this situation stemming from a project that she was working for this Jamaican gentleman named Tyrone, who had a record label called Harp, and she in dealing with the artist on his label, she was like, these artists, he was treating them like children, like they were his children, and just financing everything for them and just really coddling them, and she was like, these artists need management. So she had it in her mind to create an artist management company, to transition that into a film and entertainment company, right? So then she called me one day and she says, I want to do this company, this entertainment company, and manage these artists, whatever, and then maybe transition into some movies and stuff like that, right? I said, okay, that sounds cool. So what you gonna call it? She said, that's why I was calling you to see if you can come up with a name. So I was like, well, how about calling it Teflon? Because when she was working with Rough Rider prior to getting employed with Tyrone's company, they used to call her the Teflon Don around the office, right? So because she got a little boss mentality, you know what I mean? So she's a little thing, and so she was like, no, that Teflon is too personal. She wanted to make it more of a legitimate entity, So I said, well, how about calling it the Don? And you got to remember now, this is '99, right? So the word, wasn't like a lot of other words that are being beaten to death and have been beaten to death since then. The word wasn't thrown around in the hip-hop culture as much as it is today. And so as I suggested we call it the Don, one of Tyrone's artists, a young lady named Bonnie Clyde, walked into the office, Tyrone's office. I was in Harlem. They were in the office up in New Rochelle, North Avenue. So we're on speakerphone. She hears me say, call it the Don, and she suggests something, like we incorporate the Divas. She says, what about the Divas? And I said, all right, we'll just call it Don Diva. And it's like, okay, that's cool, that's great, we'll do that. Okay. So we go on, and we get these old photos from a guy named Alex Dijon, who has been taking photographs of Harlem icons from way, way, way back in the 60s. You know what I mean? So he provides us with these photographs, and the reason these photographs come into play with, promoting and introducing the company is because Tiffany's boyfriend at the time that we're doing this, her boyfriend is in jail, right? He's 7 years or so into a federal kingpin bid, right? So he suggests that we do something that makes it look like a magazine rather than just do a flyer, where it wouldn't have as much impact. So, okay, so we go get the pictures, and it's just a bunch of pictures. It was really a slipshod job. It was all black and white, whatever, real cheesy, but, it was nostalgic for us here in Harlem because it was a bunch of photos of, Puff back in the beginning, when y'all didn't know who he was. He was just, he was just Al Puffy, whatever. Right. And just a lot of different people, a lot of street icons, cats was running around the street back in the late 80s, 90s, early to mid 90s, whatever. A lot of people that were gone to prison, dead, moved on, whatever. So we did about 500 copies of it, and people, took to it. I got in the street with them, selling them for $20, whatever. Don Diva Entertainment. The logo was created by a guy who was working on my first book cover, for my autobiography, and he worked for BET doing their news graphics. So I explained to him what the company was about, and he came back with a half of a film reel, half of a CD. You cut a circle in half, and it looks like a D. So that was it. It was Don Diva Entertainment, okay? So when we get these promotional items, Tiffany takes some, and she goes to How Can I Be Down? And she's out there passing them out and telling people about the company and all that, whatever, this and the other. And then, I'm on the street here in Harlem, moving around in Harlem, Brooklyn, the Bronx, whatever, moving around. So when she gets back, she had sent some to her boyfriend as well in jail. So when she gets back, she gets a bunch of calls from people that she didn't come into contact with when she was in Miami. And all the calls are saying, we love this magazine, and we're going to do another one, this and the other, whatever. So she's all upset because she's like, oh, it failed. People think it's a magazine. They don't get that it's an entertainment company, and, this is bad. So then I call her and say, my man just walked up to me and asked me, what are we going to do? This is December 99. When are we going to do another issue of this magazine? I said, what magazine? He said, the Don Diva magazine, which was the first time I ever heard Don Diva and magazine put together, right? So I was like, we're going to be right back with that. So I called her, and she was like, that's crazy because Kevin, which was her boyfriend, Kevin is getting the same thing in jail. People are asking him, when y'all going to do another copy of this Don Diva magazine? She said, motherfucker, think it's a magazine. I said, well, okay, that's what's up. That's what we should be doing. Now, meanwhile, it seemed to me like it was just ordained because I had been working on my autobiography. I've been writing for 2 years since I retired from the street. So I was well into my writing. I'm writing 16 hours a day, every day. You know what I mean? So it seemed like a natural transition. So what I did was, we went on in and started putting it together, whatever, came out with the next issue. We didn't know what the hell we were doing. None of us had a background. I'm straight from the street. You know what I mean? She's, got a bit of a corporate background, whatever, but she's never done anything to do with a publication. We had no idea what we were doing. But it was a total accident, and that's how we came up with Don Diva magazine. Totally by accident. You know what I mean? And, I wrote every article, and there was a young lady named Susan Hampstead who used to roll with us, too. And in the beginning, Susan, she wrote a few articles. I wrote the majority of it, and I took all of the photographs because I was the one that was going out, hitting the streets, going to different parties, taking the pictures. And I started out just taking pictures of regular people, which is how all of these sites that started, these party sites and all that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, all hiphopparties.com and those sites started because, and this is from them to me, they told me that. They said, you gave us the idea. We wanted to do a magazine, but we didn't have the resources, so we did the next best thing was we just took these, went around and did like you did, taking photographs of regular people, because that's how I got people involved. That's how I got people interested in Don Diva. By taking photographs of regular people in parties, and putting them in the magazine, and people got a chance to see themselves, not a celebrity, themselves in their best outfits, in their nice cars, in their jewelry, whatever. They got to get themselves a degree of a piece of that celebrity, right? So, that's how it started to evolve, into that, into what it ultimately became. And I wrote every article and took every picture and did all the distribution myself, chased down all the ads myself, and just built it from there, man. It took it from borough to borough, hitting barbershops and beauty salons and bodegas and clothing stores, anywhere I knew that my demographic would be, and just built it from there. Just did that in every borough, then did that in every city, and then went state to state. Like that. I used to fill a Don Diva van. We only came out 4 times a year. That's because it took us that long. It took me that long to put everything together and gather all the content, and just get everything together and distribute it myself. You know what I mean? Because we never had major distribution. With the little bit of distribution we did get, it wasn't enough to satiate the market that I had established. You know what I mean? So I had to fill that van up. You know, we had a full-size conversion van, and I filled that thing up with about 5,000 magazines. And, I mean, literally, it would be enough room in there for my bag, me, and that's it. It would be filled from top to bottom, end to end, all the way to the window, up to the window, up to the windshield, all the way to the back. You know what I mean? And I would come back with that thing empty. and that's how Don Diva came to be. You know what I mean? And in 06, I'd come from that first DJ's Ozone Awards and got back and realized that this is not going to go any further. Like, no matter how much resources we had put into refining the magazine, you know, getting at, you know, how some magazines have that staple in them. That's called saddle stitch. You know, like the way my new magazine is, right? And then had, you know, the perfect bound, which was more what was the acceptable standard in the hip hop genre. So we had to get that perfect bound. Something like that added a $3,000 expense to our overhead in terms of production. And I had to go out and find those dollars. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, even with all the effort we put into refining it and improving the photograph, my first digital camera was a 3.5, like a floppy disk, 3.5 megapixel floppy disk Sony Mavica camera, like a floppy disk, bro. You know what I mean? That was the first digital camera, you know, commercial digital camera. And everything that came in went right back into the rest of the magazine. And then it hit me, you know, 6 years in, it hit me one day like out of nowhere, like, yo, no matter what you do, you ain't never going to get a Pepsi ad. You ain't never going to get a Ford ad. You ain't never get a CoverGirl ad. It's never going to happen. And it took all the wind out of my sails because I realized that I was working towards nothing. And since I don't do what I do to appease my ego, you know what I mean? I'm a businessman about business, and I don't hustle backwards. I don't have esteem issues. I do what I do so I can be effective in, you know, taking care of myself and my family. You know what I'm saying? So at that point, I realized that wasn't going to get it. So I dissolved my interest, walked away, left it to my ex and her boyfriend, and, you know, I went on and started, you know, my production. I had been working on my book the entire time. Remember, I was writing my book 2 years before Don Diva you know, accidentally came into being. So, you know, by the time, you know, I got to that point, I had refined my literary voice. I had established well over 1 million followers for my writing, and you know, I knew what I needed to do at that point. You know, it was that was the greatest asset to me about that whole experience. You know, and you know, so I went on ahead and started, you know, getting my publishing company together, Body of Power Publishing, and then 3 weeks after I left Don Diva, I get a call from David Mays, the creator of the Source. And he said to me, yo, Benzino called me and said, yo, call Cavario. I just heard on the radio he ain't doing Don Diva no more. We need that. We need him. So they called me, and I was like, I'm not dealing with no magazine crap, baby. That's over. You know what I mean? Then he explained the concept to me. He was like, yo, not only will we cut you in for a piece, but we'll give you a set salary so you'll know when you'll be able to pay your bills. I said, now, you know what? That's at least worth a try. So I came on up to New York, and we put that thing together, man. We put our first issue out on November 7th, on my birthday. It was like my 38th birthday or something like that. It was like 6 years ago. I'm 43, so like 37. My 37th birthday, we put it out on. You know what I mean? And we've been growing ever since. You know, we've been growing organically ever since. And now Hip Hop Weekly is the #1 hip hop publication in the country. It's the most widely distributed, the fastest selling, you know, so, and the most relevant. I mean, because we come out every week. So obviously, there's nothing that a monthly publication, which people may or may not know, monthly publications are planned. I mean, from the cover on down, 3 months in advance. You know, and of course that's not feasible when you have, you know, so much information being disseminated through the internet, you know, every 30 seconds. You know what I mean? Like just now, Drake slipped on a banana. It just happened. It's going to be on your phone in about 10 seconds. You know what I mean? So, you know, in that kind of environment, really a monthly magazine, I mean, it's outdated. The concept is outdated. So, we were ahead of the curve, and we still at this point don't have any competition because no one's figured out how to do what we do with the kind of turnaround we have.
Yeah, especially in this new computer age where everything is going online. To still have a relevant weekly publication is a challenge in itself, and the fact that you guys are still doing it and doing it so effectively is impressive.
Yeah. We got it down to a science. We really do. You know what I mean? Like, I don't work nowhere near as hard as I worked when I was doing Don Diva. Nowhere near it. And like I said, I know when my money's coming. You know what I mean?
Nice.
Don Diva is no longer a relevant brand. You know, not outside of Harlem. Outside of Harlem, when I reference it now, I have to say to people, all right, you know the American Gangster BET series? It's like, yeah. I'm like, that's what my magazine was. Like, all of those stories, those were my stories, and Nelson George and them just regurgitated my stories. That's it. I mean, okay. Then it gives them an idea. They have some sort of relevant point that they can refer to and say, okay, so you had a magazine that did that. Okay. Like that, you know what I mean? And BET copied it. Okay. So then they get an idea with it. Other than that, people, when I was doing it, it was the most talked about publication in the country, and that's bar none. I'm sorry, in the urban diaspora. It was everybody talked about it. Everybody talked about it. You know what I mean?
I remember that too. I remember because I remember Don Diva when you guys first started making your push. You guys ended up spawning follow-up companies too, like Feds Magazine. You know, Feds Magazine would never exist if it wasn't for you guys.
No. Feds, Twan, he took the idea from Troy Reed, who created Street Stars. Troy Reed from Street Stars is the creator of Feds Magazine. He brought the idea. AZ, you know, not the rapper, but AZ from here. AZ that was, with Alpo and Rich Porter. AZ brought Troy Reed to Twan and them because he figured that they were in position to back Troy up, and give him a couple $, to start this idea he had for this magazine. And they agreed they were interested, and then this is what Troy told me, a little bit afterwards. They agreed that they were interested, and then 2.5 weeks later, he heard nothing from them, and then when he hollered at them, they were like, nah, we don't want to do it. But they still had all his photographs. They still had all his plans. He said, next, a month later, they pop up with the magazine. You know what I mean? So that's how Feds came out. But that was 16 months before Don Diva came into accidental fruition. You know what I mean? So we were both on the same schedule. We were both on a quarterly schedule, and by 2003, I was 8 issues ahead of them because I dedicated myself to it. You know what I mean? Like I really dedicated myself to it, and I did nothing else. I lived, breathed. Every conversation I had began and ended with Don Diva. You never, I mean never, saw me anywhere without a copy of Don Diva in my hand. Ever. It was sewn to my hand. You know what I mean? So, me being like, I'm a guerrilla hustler, man. Like, straight like that. You know what I mean? I make things happen. I will them into existence, through my actual effort. You dig? So, when Twan, challenged, me, and oh, yeah, man, y'all ain't gonna do nothing with that. We, say, y'all can't mess with Feds. I was like, boy, first of all, you're a mental midget. So the likelihood of you being able to contend with me on an intellectual level, brother, is about as likely as, you sprouting wings and flying right now. You know what I mean? Like, it ain't going to happen, homie. You know what I mean? So rather than smack them, I just went on ahead and, showed them. I showed them that I'm better at what I do than you are at what you do. You know what I mean? That's how I go. You know what I mean? And, went on and pushed it. A lot of cats that knew me from the street were whispering that I had lost my mind because I was selling magazines. I fell off because I was selling magazines and I refused to sell narcotics anymore. I must have lost it, whatever. And then a year and a half into it, everybody was claiming that they were my partner. They was down with it. I'm their man,
But how that goes, man.
It's been a hell of a journey, though, bro. It really has.
Well, you know that journey brought you right here to this moment in time, and at this moment in time, I know the main thing that we're looking at is that book that you're putting together, man, Raised by Wolves. Tell them about this book, man.
Well, Raised by Wolves is how my writing thing started. When I retired from the street in '97, I was 30 years old, and I began my career when I was 13 years old in 1980. This is before crack. There's no such thing as crack then. I come from the heroin age. I come from a large heroin conglomerate, a large heroin family. My mother and my father were Class 1 narcotic offenders and stone cold killers. I was indoctrinated in the thing, as we called it. All right, because you never used such words as drugs or crime or we really spoke. We had a language. You know what I mean? And it was, my mom used to tell me when I was a kid, this is your business, not show business. So we didn't do what we did for fame. It was strictly for the money, not for appeasement of our little egos or, to satiate our need for validation. It wasn't about none of that. We didn't think, my mother taught me that you're not bigger than the thing. You serve the thing. It is your religion. You serve that. And you maintain that. You know what I mean? So that those who come behind you will have something like you had something. You know what I mean? And that was my indoctrination. When I'm a genetically engineered gangster. I'm not some kid who grew up in some unfortunate geographical, situation, and by virtue of that figured since my mother is, an addict and my father's a drunk and nobody's taking care of me, by virtue of that, I must be a street guy because I live here in the neighborhood where street stuff is going on. So I must be a street guy. I must be meant to be in the street. You know what I mean? So, that right there is not what I come from. You know what I mean? That I come from being taught the game, being given the game by original sportsmen, which is what we were called from the beginning, from the very beginning of when this whole thing came to us. You know what I mean? In the early 1900s, when we were brought into this thing, you know what I mean? And we were called sportsmen. You know what I mean? And it was an oratory game that was handed down from player to player, and you had to qualify for it. You know what I mean? So my book is about that. It's about coming from that. It's about coming from original ilk. And it's about what that game is really about, not what hip-hop has made it to be about, this cartoon caricature, of all these super niggas who jump off of very high buildings and enjoy the breeze on the way down, talking about, look at me, I'm so pretty, before they splat on the ground and end up with 25 years of their brains all over the place. You know what I mean? It's about the reality of that existence. And, it's about why, because I've seen a lot of books, so-called urban lit books that have been written about all these super niggas and crazy thugs and all this other foolishness, but none of it addresses the whys. So you got all these books and all these stories, and it's never occurred to anyone that the reason you have so many of these tragic hustler stories is because there is a dynamic that is affecting us continually from generation to generation that no one is addressing. Is keep repeating the same mistakes that were made by their predecessors. And it's not because we're retarded. It's not because we're so greedy that we have no sense of self-preservation. It is because there is something that is wrong with our sense of self-worth and our sense of value. You know what I mean? And no one addresses that. No one addresses the psychological, emotional, and sociological issues that bring about this behavior, even though you've seen your older brother get his head knocked off, you've seen your daddy get his head knocked off, you've seen your cousin get his head knocked off, you can't wait to put your head on that chopping block because you think it looks so good. Something's wrong with your mind if you cannot reason that this thing is not something that you should do. You know what I mean? So I went into that. As I tell my story in Raised by Wolves, which is the name of my book, the subtitle is Inside the Life and Mind of a Guerrilla Hustler, which is a phrase that I coined because people had just run and commercialized hustler to the point where it has no meaning. So I created Guerrilla Hustler so that when people speak that, they will have some kind of reference, and they will have to reference my book, and my book defines what a guerrilla hustler is. And a guerrilla hustler is a hustler who goes where he wants, puts game down, and is unmoved and undeterred by any opposition under any circumstances. He circumvents all opposition, one way or the other, but he never takes his eyes off the goal and point and purpose of what he does, which is the money. That is what you do it for. So you don't go in and shoot up the whole place and then you can't sit there and make money, but you done shot the whole place up and you think that that's got something to do with being a hustler, because that's got absolutely nothing to do with being a hustler. All elements of violence incorporated into the life are used as tools to facilitate the ultimate end. So you don't have these out-of-control behaviors, these out-of-control applications of the violence, because they result in out-of-control situations. And that doesn't make any sense. If the situation is out of control when you're done taking care of your business, you haven't taken care of business, sucker.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you just made a display and made a mess, and now you're about to go to prison. That's if the retaliatory, response doesn't knock your brains out.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what my book is. My book is every bit of what you hear now, but with a lot of detail. I take you to what it was like in the late 60s and early 70s in Harlem, where the game was given, where the game was built. This is where it was built, and it was built by brothers from St. Louis, Detroit, Chicago, North Carolina, Boston, that came here from those places where a black man could not do what he was capable of doing, because there were actual laws and practices that were enforced by the system that kept him from reaching his highest potential. He could come here to Harlem, and there was a bastion of black community where he could exist and have all of the opulence and the enjoyment of life that any white American could have, but he could have it here through any means that was made available to him. You know what I mean? So they all came here, and that hodgepodge of all these individuals coming from different places, bringing different game, different hustle, creating and inventing game, and then meeting, like they literally used to meet. The players used to meet right on Lenox Avenue, man. And they used to meet on Saturday mornings, man. And they would all sit there and just discuss game. The grifters would discuss, how they're improving their grift, and the hustlers, the boosters, the cons, the pimps, like they would all sit there and they would go back and forth and just, compare game and shit like that, and that's how the game was built. This is fact. This is fact that the average so-called street nigga don't know, because his mommy was a nurse and his daddy was a mechanic, and his ass fell into the street by accident, which is how their careers end up going. They accidentally kill people. They accidentally go to jail. They even accidentally tell on people. Oops. I didn't mean to shut you down like that, man. But they was talking about never letting me go home, and I got to see my girl. So, that's what it is, man. That Raised by Wolves is the truth. It's the truth. But it's more than just about the streets. It's a sociological and spiritual journey into the existence of an actual, real hardcore, stone cold guerrilla gangster, a true one. And not just me. It's about my predecessors. It's about my mom, my dad, my uncles, my cousins, my sister. Like all the people came before me who made millions in the game. Millions in the game. Back when millions was really a lot of money. A lot of money. So when $1 million was like having $20 million for what you could do with it. You know what I mean? I had one uncle who had 26 Cadillacs at one time. You dig? Like, these was real life rich niggas, and I was surrounded by them. I was immersed in them. I knew nothing else. So this is shit that's never been put in print before ever. I'm the first of my kind to put this into print. So do not classify this in any way, shape, form, or fashion as urban lit. It is nowhere near urban lit. You can tell the narrative voice from the character's voice in my book. You ain't gonna hear the character go, "Yo, man, That's some crazy shit right there. He just blew shit that crazy. And then the narrator goes, yeah, some crazy shit just went down as he got his shit blown back. You know what I mean? Like, I've been subject to some of these so-called urban lit hits, and I'm like, yo, this motherfucker has no command of diction whatsoever. And I'm a 10th grade dropout. Some of these cocksuckers they done went to college and studied communications and literature and English and all kind of shit. You know what I mean? It's like, motherfucker, like, what is wrong with you? You know, because that just goes to show you, at the end of the day, man, it's not just about putting pen to paper, so to speak. It's about having a talent. See, anybody can sing. Not everybody's a singer.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So that's what it comes down to. You know, I was told at maybe first grade, second grade, I was told by my teacher that I could write. I could be a writer. I just didn't believe her. I didn't even understand what she was talking about. Like, I was already, I'm talking about 1972. I was already bent on, I'm going to be a gangster. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't even know what a writer is. I mean, it's actually an occupation where people, their job is to write. That sounds silly. I'm doing this right now. Nobody's paying me. You know what I mean? So the concept of it didn't even occur to me. It took me like 24 years or something, to 25 years to get around to, oh, she was right. You know? But, you know, it's been a wonderful journey, though, man. It really has. It has been a wonderful journey. Now, I overstand so much that I really look forward to, you know, fully applying myself in this gift. And this gift, not just this gift of expression, but this gift of opportunity that has been afforded me by the universe. You understand what I'm saying? Like, this is really, you know, a great thing, man. It's really a great thing to have had these experiences and survived them. You know, 17 and a half years on the street, you know, and all Be More, DC in 86, when it was sick, when DC was sick in 86. You know what I'm saying, me? Like, I'm talking about when you see a cat get his brains blown on one end of the block, and then we move to the other end of the block, and then get his brains blown over there, so we just move to the middle of the block. You know what I mean? Why the police come and, you know, do what they do, you know? And, you know, Be More, from 89 to 95, you know, I was all in North Carolina, all over North Carolina. I retired from North Carolina. You know, Bridgeport, Connecticut, which is one of the worst ghettos in the country at that time. You know what I mean? Jamaica, Queens in 84, when the Supreme team was running around and the Jamaican posses was running around, and you had to hustle with a gun in one hand and your work on the other. You know what I mean? And be equally fluent with both, because it was moving. It was going down. You understand me? Like, the shit that movies are made of in reference to that lifestyle, those movies are based on the era in which I came in. You know, the era, that crack era, you know, really changed the game, because a lot of people who had no business in the game were able to get in the game because they didn't have to deal with one of the 5 major people who had the heroin. When cocaine came and got, you know, popularized as crack, a kid could work at a summer job for 2 weeks, get his check for $250, go up to Broadway and see some Jerry Curlhead sockless Dominican and get 14 grams and go stand in front of his grandmother's building, and his uncle would cook it for him because he'd been smoking, and then he'd stand out there and be like, hey, I'm a drug dealer. When I was coming up, no way. It didn't matter if you were literally born in that apartment. You had to be verified by somebody who was qualified in order to be certified. So all that, this is my block, I was born here, nigga, you will die here. But you do not jump out on my streets without permission. And you have to be brought. There ain't no roguing. There ain't none of that. You are down with us who have been here and been doing this when your little ass is going to church every Sunday and going straight to school and coming straight home, and maybe on a Saturday you're able to sit on the stoop as long as your mother could see you from the window. And all of a sudden you get 17 years old and maybe your dad dies or your mom is taken ill, and now you are running wild street nigga because you done watched Menace to Society and listened to a couple of NWA records. Nigga, motherfuckers like me, we was waiting for your ass. We was waiting for your ass. And we ate that food, homie. The game regulates itself. That's how it used to be. That's how the telling got so popular. Because the suckers who thought that the game was to facilitate their egos and their whole adulation, adoration, and I want to get girls, and girls like guys who sell drugs or whatever they were thinking. Those guys, when those guys came in and realized, oh shit, the respect that them guys that we've been admiring all this time, the respect they get, it ain't got shit to do with no money. These niggas actually put work in. It ain't got no money. I thought that the money was what people respected. I was clueless. I had no idea. When they find that out, they find that out because as soon as they get $2, they realize that that didn't make you a wolf. What it made you was food for the wolves. You know? So the first thing they do is go run to the police like, yo, help. You know what I mean? Like, these niggas they are digging in my ass here. You know what I mean? So, that's how the stitching thing became so prevalent. And I'm going to tell you a fact of the matter. Because I've got comrades in and out of the system all across this country and even in New Zealand and England, I'm telling you, there are more cats on the street, and this has been ever since the early 90s. There are more dudes on the street that are working with the police than there are that aren't working with the police.
I can believe that.
Oh, you better believe it. Anybody within earshot of my voice right now that think they want to go and around with them streets, they better believe what I'm telling them. I'm a statistical anomaly, my nigga. You do not emerge alive, healthy, and free from the career I've had. I am the only one I know that walked away unscathed and put the work in to earn my status in that realm.
And it's interesting you bring up that point with snitching because and this is something that, shout out to the 2-hour show. They were talking about this just a couple weeks back on their show. But one thing that a lot of people don't understand is that when you're sitting there, you're jumping into this game and you're jumping into this lifestyle, you're making this choice to go ahead and live with that. A part of making that choice of going into that lifestyle is that you can and more than likely will get arrested. And when that goes down, you're supposed to shut your mouth.
That's right.
Now, that's a general rule that hasn't been applied to a lot of the younger generations because, like you just mentioned, a lot of these cats were raised by television. They weren't actually raised by dudes that were really doing it right. And it kind of led to the deterioration of the game, but it was also, like you just said, there was a lot of saturation. So...
Yes, sir.
We definitely understand that. And while we're talking about, a little bit about the street, there's a lot of writers and there's a lot of taggers and there's a lot of graffiti heads that understand exactly what you're talking about right now. There's a couple cats right now that are listening to this going from the feds right there. Because a lot of these cats, when they was out there doing their thing, they was also throwing up pieces on walls and shit like that. And whether it was something that they was doing painting or it was something that they was doing in the streets, ended up getting caught up. So they understand just what you're talking about. So while we bringing these two in and tying these two together, man, tell me, man, how did you see graffiti evolving during your time running the streets, man? Because you was out there when these cats was first starting doing this shit, before this shit reached the point where it is now. So you kind of seen it all unfold, man. How much have you seen it change since you was younger?
Well, first of all, when I was writing back in 77, I was brought into the game by Bantu, Set Deuce. These are Bronx legends. Crane, Bear 167, may he rest. Cats like that. You know what I mean? And I knew we used to get chased everywhere. It was truly villainized. We used to hit the 2s, the 5s, the D train. You know what I mean? We used to go to yards. We got chased by dogs and cops and motormen, and it was a true life of crime. It was a natural transition for someone who came from a setting such as mine, which was replete with criminality. And for me to go into the graffiti thing was like just as normal as pie, and it transitioned right into the drug thing. You know what I mean? The whole, artistic aspect of it as it exists today, where, they got into getting, museum exposés and, all kinds. I've seen graffiti documentaries where they are like in Japan and Dominican Republic and all over Europe and just crazy, and it all started from right here. You know what I mean? And it's just like, you know, the evolution has been unbelievable. Like, I never thought that this underground culture, you know, this underground culture of expression, you know, and angst would evolve into this mainstream worldwide phenomenon. I never ever anticipated that could ever happen. You know, as you know, you sitting in the precinct waiting for your mother to come get you because they done, you know, caught you writing on the train and shit. You can read about this in my book, like the first time I got busted for writing graffiti and shit. You know what I mean? And it's like, you know, to see that it's turned into this, it's like, you know, to what it's turned into, it's just crazy. Like, it's kind of mind-boggling because, you know, I know cats that really went to jail for this shit. And, you know, that's crazy that there's somebody who's traveling the world getting paid to do what you went to jail for. You know what I mean? It's bizarre, man. It's bizarre, but I'm glad that it gave people an opportunity. I got to a point where I really didn't like the just the random tagging and, you know, bombing and, you know, just property damage and vandalism. That right there, I just don't care for. I just do not care for. You know what I mean? I mean, that comes with maturity and understanding the impact of what you're doing. When you're a writer, you know, you don't think past, you know, satiating that desire to get you see your name up on a clear space, you know, and it's an addiction, man. My mom used to have to literally, like, frisk me before I went out to school in the morning. She used to have to frisk me for markers. You know, like, it was bad. It was bad. And you'll read in my book how she cured me of writing. One night I came back from the yard. I was out bombing the 2s and 5s with my man, Crap Too. And man, I got my bubble jacket all inked up on the inside. And boy, I you know, I told her I needed this jacket. I gotta have this jacket because, you know, that was standard issue for graffiti right back then. A bubble jacket. You know, you had to have your bubble jacket. You had to have your Lees. You know what I mean? You had to have your Pumas. You know what I mean? And a lot of kids back then were really, really poor because, like, back then there were very few kids who had somebody in their family who was selling drugs. So they had very limited means. You know, meanwhile, you know, my mother's got $1 million in the house, cash at all times. So I wanted for nothing, and I didn't understand want. I didn't understand need. You know, I didn't understand that. You know, I had friends who didn't have, and the resources weren't there for them. I didn't understand that. I had no concept of it. You know what I mean? So, you know, when I got things that I just had to have, I really had little to no regard for it. But boy, when I came back with that jacket, you know, I was smoked up too. And my mother knew I smoked. But when she saw my jacket inked up, she saw me, like, I made like 6 peanut butter jelly sandwiches, right? And she saw me, you know, she looked at me, and she seen I was high, you know, off of weed. She saw me, she looked at me, and she shook her head like, you stupid motherfucker. And I was laughing and shit. And then she turned her head and caught a glimpse of the inside of my jacket. And boy, let me say that she sure cured me, buddy. That was it. I was like, man, shit. It ain't worth the trouble, man. I'm done. I am done. I'm going to sell me some damn drugs, man. Like that. Real talk. And that's a true story. Like, verbatim. Like, that's really what happened, man. She beat the shit out of me in there. You know what I mean? It was crazy as hell. You know, but it's funny. You know, one of the aspects of my book is that I talk about experiences large and small, and I talk about them with a great degree of detail. I talk about them in relation to the emotion or the feeling that they brought about in me, and then I revisit them in my adolescent years and connect the behavior of my adolescence to that particular experience. and what
Right.
I didn't understand, it was teaching me, you know what I mean? But looking back, you know, from the point at which I retired and just doing that introspection on my life, I realized that, you know, those behaviors that were being displayed in my developmental environment were making me the way I was, you know, I was so hardcore serious, you know what I mean, in how I was intolerant. I was really intolerant. I could become indifferent in seconds, you know what I mean, towards anyone. Didn't matter who they were, you know, and these are things I learned from my home, you know, from my mother and the people who developed me, you know, and I didn't realize it until I started writing that book. Like, this is where I got this behavior from. This is why I was the way I was in the street. This is why people were terrified of me. And I didn't understand why people were terrified of me. I was just very serious about the application of my craft, because I understood this is life or death. Every step is life or death. Every step. Mm-hmm. Even when you're having fun, you still have to be vigilant, because that's the moment that you're most susceptible to what can happen. I don't know how many dudes I know that hung out all night or all weekend, came in at 5 o'clock on a Monday morning, and as soon as they laid their head on that pillow, they'd have been drinking, smoking, and doing who knows what for 3 days straight since Friday night. And here come Monday morning, they crash on that pillow, and no sooner than they get into that REM sleep, oh, here come the feds. By the time they sobered up, they were in jail for 2 months before they realized, oh, shit, the last time I was out is the last time I'm going to be out. You know what I mean? And it blows their mind, because they said, if I knew that was going to be my last day free, I would have done something different. You understand what I'm saying? So, you know, it's really, my book is really about the full gamut, the life. You know, life encompasses a great deal, but it's about the life. You know what I mean? And everything that comes with it. You know. So, and you know, like I said, it started with graffiti. It damn sure did. They say that marijuana is the gateway drug, or graffiti is the gateway crime.
Oh, that's the truth right there. That's definitely the truth right there. Well, look, brother, we're running a little bit low on time. Before we're out, man, do you have any final thoughts you want to leave with our listeners today, man?
Yes, man. Respect your life and its value, and the people who love you. Don't squander your life. Don't squander the love of your people, and do something responsible with this life, because it's the one you got. It ain't a dress rehearsal. This is it. This is it. This is the show. You know what I mean? And there is no part 2, so don't blow it. And, you know, holler at the hustler. Go to my site, www.cav, as in victorious, ARIO, my last initial H, CavarioH.com, and order that book and get some of this good life, real talk in your mind, so you can live a little longer. It doesn't matter if you're in the street or not, because a lot of the information I give is very pragmatic. It's practically applicable to your existence. If you breathe it, you need it. Understood? And check me out on Facebook, Cavario, HOTHOTSHIT. Yeah, you heard it right. Cavario Hot Shit. All right? So that's what I leave you with, man. And be well. Be peace.
Solid, and likewise to you, brother. Y'all heard it here first. This is the Infamous Magazine signing out, y'all.
When fame is not enough,